She came dressed like a customer no one respected, but she owned everything they stood on. Nobody gave the woman in worn jeans and a faded gray hoodie a second look as she stepped through the tall glass doors of Graves Automotive. Her sneakers squeaked faintly on the polished showroom floor as she moved past gleaming sports cars and executive sedans, each model meticulously angled to impress. To the staff, she looked like someone who had taken a wrong turn on her way to the used car lot. That was exactly what she wanted. Elena Graves, founder and CEO of one of the most prestigious automotive empires in the country, had been in boardrooms with billionaires, spoken at international summits, and built her brand from a second-hand garage in Detroit. But today, she wanted to see what happened when her name wasn't attached to her face. She wasn't Elena, the executive today, just Elena, the curious potential customer. She lingered near a pearl-white sports coupe, letting her fingers glide over the hood, pretending to admire the engine beneath. Not a single greeting, no, "May I help you?" No offer of coffee or even eye contact. Most of the staff were huddled together, casually chatting, their suits crisp and their smiles ready. But not for her. After 5 full minutes, someone finally approached. A man in a navy suit, hair slicked back with a shine that matched the showroom floor, sauntered over. His name tag read Marcus. He didn't smile, just glanced at her sneakers, then her hoodie, and forced a practiced grin. "You looking for something? A little more, affordable?" he asked, his voice smooth like polished chrome but edged with condescension. Elena smiled softly. "Actually, I was curious about that model." She nodded toward the sleek coupe beside her. Marcus raised an eyebrow, then smirked. "That one's, let's just say it's not exactly starter budget friendly," he said with a short laugh, as if she might find it funny too. "Why don't I show you something over here? Sedans, good mileage, real practical." He gestured to a corner of the room that was clearly less curated, where older models and fewer lights shone. Elena's jaw tightened just enough to feel it. She nodded anyway, playing along. "Sure, lead the way." As they walked, she noticed something that made her stomach knot. A young white couple, both in casual sweats, walked in. No appointment, no fanfare. Immediately, 2 employees straightened their ties and rushed forward, offering drinks and cheerful hellos. One handed over a key fob without hesitation, gesturing toward the same luxury model Elena had been eyeing just moments ago. Marcus didn't even glance at them. It hit her then. Not just bias, but something worse. Routine discrimination. A system built on assumptions and appearances. This wasn't one employee having a bad day. This was deeper. She kept her composure, followed Marcus through his pointless tour, and finally excused herself to think it over. Instead of leaving, she walked to the waiting area, pulled out her phone, and texted Jordan. "Start recording, discreetly, everything from this showroom. Don't ask, just do it." Jordan's reply was instant. "On it." Elena sat quietly, pretending to scroll through social media, while her eyes scanned the room. A black couple entered through the front. They looked relaxed, hopeful even. The woman smiled as she pointed at a ruby-red SUV. But before they could get close, another salesman intercepted them, guiding them towards smaller, older models with thin smiles and closed-off body language. Elena's throat burned with quiet fury. She looked around again. White customers greeted with champagne offers, easy access to test drives, hushed voices of welcome. People of color were either ignored, redirected, or treated like potential thieves. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with resolve. She'd built Graves Automotive with the promise that luxury wasn't just for the elite, that anyone with dreams and determination deserved respect. And now that very promise was being shredded in broad daylight. She leaned back in her chair, crossing one leg over the other, and stared at the showroom lights overhead. Her company was rotting from the inside, and she was going to rip out the disease by its roots, and it would start with Marcus. The next morning, Elena was back. Same. Hoodie, same jeans, same silence from the sales staff. No one had recognized her the day before, and no one did now. But she wasn't here to be seen. She was here to see. She parked herself on one of the corner lounge chairs again, coffee in hand, and watched. Her phone was angled casually in her lap, its camera lens barely peeking from beneath her sleeve. Jordan had already started recording the showroom from the building across the street, but Elena needed to witness every detail for herself. A young black man walked in, probably late 20s, clean-cut, confident. He wore a tailored charcoal suit and held himself with ease, like someone who knew what he wanted and could afford it. His gaze landed on a sapphire blue sports car displayed beneath a spotlight. He was halfway toward it when a salesman, different from yesterday, stepped directly in front of him. "Hey there. Great to see you," the man said, flashing a tight smile. "Just so you know, that model's currently reserved, but we've got a few others I think you'll like better. Over here." The young man's brow creased slightly. "I just wanted to look. That one caught my eye." The salesman nodded quickly. Of course. But it's company policy not to show reserved inventory to walk-ins. Let me show you something more accessible." Elena's chest tightened. That car wasn't reserved. It had been test-driven twice yesterday by white couples without appointments. She scribbled a note into her phone. Another name, another pattern. Next came a veteran, mid-40s, military haircut. His right pant leg folded up and clipped beneath, his knee where a prosthetic began. He walked in with a golden retriever and a red service vest and a friendly smile. The receptionist greeted him politely enough but called over a salesman, who barely made eye contact. The veteran asked about a truck model. "Not sure that one's in your budget," the salesman said flatly. "Our financing's pretty tight. On it. You might want to check the used section." Used section. No offer to test drive. No interest in his service, his story, or his needs. Elena's teeth clenched. Then came the worst one. A black father and his 10-year-old son walked in. The boy's eyes wide with excitement as he tugged his dad's sleeve toward a gleaming SUV. The father smiled, proud, and said, "That's the one we saw online." They didn't get more than 10 feet in before a saleswoman intercepted them. No test drive. No real introduction. Just a brochure and a business card with, "Come back when you're serious." The son looked up at his dad and whispered, "It's okay, Daddy. I know we can't afford it. They won't let us drive it anyway." Elena couldn't breathe for a moment. Her heart cracked. That child didn't even try to fight the assumption. He accepted it, as if this wasn't the first time he'd seen someone look at his family and decide they weren't worthy. Elena stood and walked away before her emotions could show on her face. In the hallway by the bathrooms, she ran into a woman she'd seen, lingering near the front desk. Short, curly hair, quiet demeanor, Nina, the receptionist. Elena had noticed her trying quietly to help a few customers, handing them proper brochures, making soft suggestions before being overruled by other staff. "Hey," Elena said softly, giving a polite smile. Nina looked startled but smiled back. "I like the energy here," Elena lied. "Everyone seems pretty confident." Nina gave a polite laugh, but her eyes flickered. "It's busy." "Do you get to help customers often?" Nina shook her head. "Not really. We're supposed to direct people to sales. I just do the desk." "But you seem to know a lot about the cars." "I used to be in sales," Nina said quietly. "I got moved, told I wasn't the right fit." Elena's breath caught. "Why?" Nina hesitated. "I don't know," she said, but the look in her eyes said she did. She just didn't dare say it aloud. That was enough for Elena. That night, in her hotel suite, Elena went over the recordings with Jordan. He had captured everything. Voice clips, video evidence, time-stamped interactions. There was enough to build a case that would sink Marcus and anyone else following these quiet, corrosive policies. But for Elena, it wasn't about sinking anyone. It was about saving her company's soul. She sat at the window, staring out over the city lights, remembering her father. Grease under his nails. The shop radio humming and him telling her, "You treat people like they matter, Ellie, no matter what they wear or drive." Tomorrow, she'd go back to the showroom, but she wouldn't be hiding anymore. She'd be ready to burn the rot down. The morning sun poured through the glass walls of Graves Automotive, lighting up the polished showroom floor like a stage. And that was exactly what it had become. Elena Graves stood just outside in the parking lot, the wind tugging lightly at the edge of her long, dark coat. She didn't wear sneakers today. No faded hoodie. No downplayed anonymity. Today she came as herself. No mask, no disguise. Her tailored suit was sharp enough to slice through tension. Her expression unreadable. Jordan stood beside her, carrying the laptop that held every piece of evidence they had collected over the last week. He glanced at her, brows raised with quiet tension. "You ready?" he asked softly. Elena didn't answer for a moment, her fingers curled at her side, nails faintly digging into her palm. This wasn't just about firing someone. This was about reclaiming what her company stood for, what she had bled for. "I'm not just ready," she said at last, steady and low. "I'm done waiting." She turned and walked through the glass doors. Every heel click echoed through the showroom like a countdown. Staff turned to look, one by one. Their conversations stilled, their laughter quieted. Some blinked, confused. Others straightened their posture as recognition sparked. Marcus was standing near the center, leaning against a car he hadn't sold in 2 weeks, sipping coffee. He squinted at her, then took a slow step forward. "Elena?" he said, forced surprise barely masked under a twitch of nerves. "Ms. Graves, this is unexpected." She stopped in the middle of the showroom and faced him with the cool poise of someone used to command. Her voice was calm, level. "Gather your team. I want everyone here. Now." Marcus's smile faltered. "Is something wrong? I mean, I would have arranged something more formal." "You had your chance at formal," she interrupted, her voice just loud enough to carry through the space. "Now it's my turn." He hesitated. She didn't blink. Slowly, he turned and clapped his hands once. "Everyone. Front of house. Let's go." Employees shuffled in, some whispering, some side-glancing at Jordan, who had begun setting up the screen. Nina hovered near the back, arms crossed tight, nervous energy in her posture. Elena stood alone in front of them, facing every person who had smiled for power and sneered at humanity. "I came here last week," she began, her tone still even. "None of you knew who I was. You didn't recognize me. You looked right at me and decided I wasn't worth your attention. I watched. You smile at others and sneer at people who looked like me, dressed like me, or walked in with the wrong skin tone." A heavy pause followed. No one dared interrupt. Jordan pressed a key on the laptop. The screen came alive, and then it began. Footage of the showroom played across the wide display, security angles, discrete phone videos, audio recordings. Scene after scene rolled out, the young black man in a suit being redirected. The war veteran with the prosthetic turned away from the truck section. The receptionist fidgeting while a manager overruled her. The little boy telling his father, "They won't let us." Elena didn't look at the screen. She watched the employees instead. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others turned pale. A few dropped their eyes. "Marcus?" He froze like a statue. The videos kept coming. Audio clips followed. Recordings of Marcus telling staff to prioritize appearances, to judge who was worth their time. Other salesmen laughing over drinks about dodging unserious shoppers. Every second twisted the knife deeper. Then Jordan clicked, "Pause." Silence. Elena stepped forward. "I built this company from a repair shop," she said, her voice trembling. Not with fear, but restraint. "My father used to clean engines in the cold while people like you mocked him, told him he didn't belong. I promised myself that if I ever had power, I'd use it to make sure others never felt that way." She let the silence speak for a beat. Her voice dropped. "And here you are, dragging my father's legacy through the mud while wearing my logo on your chest." Marcus finally spoke, voice low. "You don't understand the pressure we're under. We have targets, expectations. Do not finish that sentence," Elena snapped. "Do not stand here and use your job as an excuse to treat people like garbage." He opened his mouth again, then closed it. The room was dead quiet. Elena turned to the others. "I'm not firing Marcus because I'm angry. I'm firing him because he's a cancer to this company. And cancers, if left unchecked, spread." She faced Marcus again. "You're done. Effective immediately." Marcus stepped back. "Elena, please listen. I've been here 10 years. I've led this branch to record sales." "You led it with a poisoned compass," she said. "Security is waiting outside." Marcus turned to the others as if someone might defend him. No one spoke. Security entered silently and escorted him out. His shoes scuffed the floor as he passed Elena, but she didn't look at him again. When the door closed behind him, she took a slow breath and looked at the rest of the staff. "I'm not here to ruin careers," she said, softer now. "I'm here to fix what we let rot. If you've been pressured into treating people unfairly, now's the time to speak. No punishment. But silence won't protect you anymore." A pause. And then a voice from the back. It was Nina. She stepped forward, hesitant but steady. "I tried to help," she said. "I gave people brochures, tried to guide them. I was told not to interfere, told it wasn't my place." Elena nodded slowly. "It is now." Another employee, a young salesman, raised his hand. I was told to avoid offering test drives to anyone who didn't have visible wealth. It didn't feel right, but I was new. I didn't think I had a choice." "You do now," Elena said. "And from this moment on, anyone who treats a customer based on bias will not have a place in this company." She stepped forward and pulled the Graves automotive pin from her lapel. "This name stands for more than profit. It stands for respect, dignity, fairness. From this day on, it will mean something again." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving behind silence, heavy but full of something new, not fear, but hope. Elena didn't go far after delivering her blow. She stopped at the showroom's glass conference room, fittingly empty and polished like a display window, and gestured to Jordan to join her. As they stepped inside, the tension outside lingered, like static in the air. Jordan shut the door behind them. "That was surgical," he said, cautiously impressed. "You didn't even raise your voice." "I didn't need to," Elena replied, her voice still tightly wound. The truth did the screaming. She sat down slowly at the long glass table, feeling the weight of what she'd just done settle in her bones. For days she'd observed the silent rot. For days she'd bit her tongue while people who wore her brand judged, excluded, and rejected people who looked like her father, her friends. And now that she'd cut out the most visible cancer, she didn't feel triumph. She felt tired. "You all right?" Jordan asked. Elena looked out the window at the showroom, where staff had begun murmuring again. A few had grouped together, whispering and watching. Nina, she noticed, was standing alone by the front desk. her arms wrapped around herself as if unsure of where she stood in the new order. "No," Elena said softly. "I'm not all right. But this was necessary." She stood again, suddenly resolute. "Come with me." Jordan followed her as she stepped back onto the floor. The conversations died instantly. Elena walked straight to Nina. "Nina," she said. "Can I talk to you privately?" Nina blinked. "Of course, Ms. Graves." Elena offered a slight smile. "Elena, please." They returned to the same conference room. Elena gestured for Nina to sit while she remained standing for a moment, thinking. "You tried to do the right thing," she said. "I saw it. In little ways. You helped when others wouldn't. I want to know everything you've experienced here. Don't hold back. There's no one listening except me." Nina hesitated, unsure if this was a trap, a test, or a real opportunity. Then her eyes hardened slightly, and she sat straighter. 3 years ago, I started in sales," she said. "I was fresh out of school. I crushed my numbers my first month, mostly from people who came in without appointments. Walk-ins. First time. Buyers. One of them was a Latina nurse buying her first car for her son. Another was a black entrepreneur just starting his business. I treated them like anyone else, and they bought." Elena nodded, listening intently. "Second month I got pulled into a back office. Marcus told me I was bringing the wrong vibe to the luxury floor, that I should focus on people who understood the brand." Her voice was bitter now. "I got transferred to front desk." "You have a friendly face," he said. Elena's heart squeezed. "He didn't promote you because you served the wrong customers." Nina nodded once, "and he made it clear that if I didn't smile and stay out of sales, my job wouldn't last." Elena sat across from her. "I'm so sorry for all of that, but things are changing. Today." Nina's expression wavered, between disbelief, hope, and guarded exhaustion. "A lot of people say that." "I'm not a lot of people," Elena said. "I'm the one who signs their checks." She stood again. "Would you consider stepping back into a sales role, this time with the authority you were denied?" Nina's eyes widened. "You mean?" "Assistant manager," Elena said. "You'll help lead the transition here, build a team that serves everyone equally, train them if needed, fire them if they can't adjust." Nina swallowed hard. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." "Yes," Nina whispered, then with more strength. "Yes." Elena reached out to shake her hand. Nina took it, and in that small moment, something shifted. Not just in the building, but in the culture. The rest of the day passed in a series of quiet reckonings. Jordan printed out copies of the company's anti-discrimination policies and distributed them personally. Elena held one-on-one conversations with each department. She didn't yell. She didn't lecture. She asked questions and listened. Many of the employees had felt the toxic environment, but didn't know how to speak up. Others had participated willingly, and they knew now that their time was running short. One particularly revealing moment came from a young sales associate named Theo. He was pale when he stepped into the meeting room. Barely 24, probably fresh into the job, trying hard to impress the wrong people. "I want to apologize," he said the second the door closed. Elena raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For how I treated people. I was told that appearances matter, that someone in a hoodie wouldn't afford anything. I believed them. I even repeated it." "Do you believe it now?" He looked ashamed. "No. After seeing the recordings, I felt sick." Elena leaned forward. "You still have a job, Theo, but going forward it comes with expectations. This company will not protect bias. It will protect people. You in?" He nodded. "I'm in." One by one, her company's real character revealed itself. Some were ready for redemption. Some would be gone by week's end. By 6 p.m., the showroom felt like a different place, lighter somehow, as if a dense fog had lifted. Elena stood once, more at the center of the floor, her team gathered around. This time, they looked at her, not as a stranger, but as a leader they now knew by fire. "This isn't over," she said. "It's just the start. But from now on, if a single customer walks through those doors and feels unworthy, then we have failed." She looked each person in the eye. "I will never allow my father's legacy to be a weapon against the very people he fought for. And neither will you." They didn't applaud. They didn't cheer. They nodded, quiet, sober, understanding. That was better than applause. That was commitment. That night, Elena sat alone in her office upstairs, looking over the footage last time. Jordan entered quietly, carrying 2 coffees. "You sure you want to watch it again?" "I don't want to," she said. "I need to." He sat beside her. "You think this will fix it?" "No," she said, "but it's a start. And sometimes that's all you need." The screen glowed in the dark room, replaying the moments that had almost broken her heart, but ultimately rebuilt her company. Elena didn't cry, she just watched, silent, unshaken, ready. 3 days later, Graves Automotive felt like a place emerging from winter. The mood inside the showroom had shifted, subtly but unmistakably. No more stiff postures, no more sideways glances between employees. There were still moments of hesitation, people still adjusting to the gravity of what had happened, but for the first time in years, something authentic flickered in the air. Relief. And hope. Elena had been in the building every day since the confrontation, not to intimidate, but to rebuild. Not as a distant CEO who gave speeches and flew off in helicopters, but as a woman who poured coffee in the break room, held one-on-one meetings with entry-level staff, and stayed past 10 p.m., reviewing every department's operations. She wasn't here to observe anymore. She was here to lead. Her first major act after Marcus's firing was launching a complete audit. Every SEER, showroom, every regional team, every training file. No corner of the company would be spared. She handpicked a new task force of auditors, former civil rights consultants, and consumer equity experts. Each one was given full access, and the reports were damning. Some locations had quietly adopted unwritten appearance filters, advising sales staff to spend less time on walk-ins who didn't wear designer clothes or carry obvious signs of wealth. A few employees had even created internal nicknames for certain demographics: browsers, lookers, credit check specials. None of it was in writing, but all of it was real. Elena didn't hesitate. 4 more managers were terminated, across various branches. When journalists caught wind of it and began calling for statements, Elena didn't dodge the spotlight. She stood on the steps of Graves Automotive's headquarters and looked every camera in the eye. "This isn't damage control," she said. "This is course correction. We failed some of our customers. I failed to see what was happening under my own roof. But I see it now. And I won't let it stand." The video went viral, but not for its outrage, because of its honesty. At the showroom where it all began, the transformation was visible. The champagne cooler had been removed, replaced by a small hospitality table with coffee, water, and snacks available to every visitor, regardless of who they were or how they looked. New signage was installed at the entrance. Respect isn't optional here, it's standard. And the staff had changed, not in number, but in spirit. Nina, now in her new role as assistant manager, had taken her promotion seriously. She led morning briefings with quiet strength, coached new hires on how to make everyone feel welcome, and personally followed up with every complaint. Customers who had once walked out feeling judged now returned. One of them, the young black father and his son, came back the following week. This time, Nina herself greeted them. The boy's eyes went wide when she handed him a toy replica of the same SUV he had admired days ago. "This is just to get started," she said with a smile. "But you and your dad get the real one for a spin today." The father blinked. "Seriously?" Nina nodded. "Absolutely." The smile on the boy's face was the kind Elena had wanted Graves Automotive to represent all along. In her private office upstairs, Elena reviewed customer feedback reports. Her inbox overflowed. Messages came from strangers across the country, some thanking her for standing up, others sharing their own stories of subtle discrimination at other dealerships. One email stood out. It was from a former employee. "Hi, Elena. I used to work for Graves in Nevada. I quit last year after being repeatedly passed over for promotion while watching less experienced people rise ahead of me. I thought maybe I just wasn't good enough. Then I saw what you did last week. Thank you for proving it was never me." Camilla Elena stared at the screen, hand covering her mouth. For a moment, the weight of it all, the anger, the guilt, the responsibility, pressed in again. But she wasn't broken by it. She was renewed. The final piece came a few weeks later, in the form of a new foundation. Elena launched the Graves Equity Initiative, a program designed to fund scholarships and mentorships for Black and minority youth interested in automotive careers, whether engineering, sales, design, or business. The first year's funding came directly from her personal fortune. "I built this empire," she said at the press event, "but it's worthless if I don't use it to open doors wider than the ones I had to break through." She didn't hire a PR team for the foundation. She hired young talent from communities like the one she grew up in. And finally, she returned to the showroom where it all began. But this time, she wasn't undercover. She walked through the doors in a simple dress and heels. And this time, every employee greeted her. Genuinely. With warmth. With pride. Nina walked over and handed her a clipboard. "We've got a family coming in for a test drive in 10 minutes. They saw the article about you. Said they've never bought a car before and didn't think they ever would." Elena smiled. "Let's make sure they remember this." As she looked around the space, new posters, diverse staff, laughter in the air, customers being treated like human beings, she felt something shift inside her. The shame she had carried, just days ago, had been replaced by something sturdier. Peace. Because she hadn't just exposed the problem. She had started to fix it. 6 months had passed since the firestorm that tore through Graves Automotive, and in that time, what was once an empire quietly complicit in bias had transformed into a model of integrity. It hadn't happened overnight. And it hadn't been easy. But Elena Graves never expected easy. She expected results. Across the country, showroom managers were different. Younger, sharper, more representative of the people they served. Several had been promoted from roles long ignored. Nina wasn't the only one who'd risen from receptionist to leadership. The sales teams were now trained not just in product features and financing, but in listening, in empathy, in the art of service that wasn't based on assumption or stereotype, but on respect, and it was working. Sales didn't drop, they soared. When people walked into a Graves showroom, they didn't just see luxury, they felt welcome. That mattered more than chrome rims or horsepower figures. Word spread. Reviews flooded online. Customers who had once been quietly ignored were now loudly recommending the brand. A national magazine ran a story titled, "The CEO Who Changed Everything, from the Inside Out." Elena didn't do press tours. She didn't need to. Her work spoke loud enough. On a warm spring afternoon, Elena visited a different showroom, this one in Atlanta. It was a location she hadn't touched personally, but the new manager, a young Black woman named Aisha, had reached out weeks earlier to say, "We're doing things right here. Come see." Elena arrived alone, No press, no security detail, no clipboard. She wore jeans again, and a plain white blouse. Nothing flashy. She walked in quietly and just watched. A couple stood near the entrance, a Latino man in work boots and a woman holding a baby on her hip. They looked unsure, nervous even. A young salesman with dreads and a wide smile walked right up to them. "Welcome," he said. "I'm James. You two here to check out the SUVs? We've got a family-friendly model I think you'll love. Want to take a look?" No hesitation, no side glances, just warmth. Elena's eyes misted before she could stop them. She drifted past the displays and stopped near the back, where a framed quote hung on the wall above the service counter. She didn't recognize it at first. Then she read it aloud under her breath. "Everyone deserves the keys, e.g." She exhaled slowly, smiling at the initials. A small voice behind her interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me," said a girl around 8 years old, nervously clutching a toy car. "Are you the boss?" Elena turned and knelt to her. Level. "What makes you ask?" "You look like the lady from the video. My mom said you fired the bad guy." Elena chuckled softly. "Well, I did what I had to." The girl's eyes sparkled. "I want to work here one day. I like helping people." "You'll make a great boss," Elena said. "Better than me." The girl beamed and skipped back to her mother. Elena stood again, heart full. Weeks later, in a private ceremony, Elena launched the first Graves Automotive Fellowship, a mentorship program for young professionals from underserved communities. She personally called each of the 15 selected fellows, learning their names, their goals, and what barriers they'd already had to break through. One, a soft-spoken mechanic's son from Birmingham, reminded her of herself. "I just want a chance to show what I can do," he said. "You just got it," Elena replied. Back at headquarters, Elena walked through her office, now filled with new energy. Portraits of old company milestones had been replaced by photos of customers, smiling families with their first car, veterans who were honored instead of dismissed, young people who said, "Someone finally saw me." Jordan leaned in through the doorway. "There's a woman downstairs. Says she used to work here. Left 2 years ago. Camilla. Wants to say hi." Elena's chest lifted. "Send her up." Moments later, the woman walked in, her expression unsure but proud. "You probably don't remember me." "I remember your email," Elena said, walking around the desk to hug her. "I've been hoping you'd come back." Camilla laughed through a tear. "I didn't think you'd want me. You're exactly the kind of person we need." And she meant it. One evening, Elena returned to her father's old garage. The building had been renovated years ago, turned into a community learning center. But the bones were the same. The smell of oil and possibility still lingered. She stood at the same workbench where he once showed her how to change a spark plug. Her fingers ran over the scuffed surface. A teenager nearby, learning under the new Graves-funded mentorship program, looked over. "Hey, lady, you know anything about wiring headlights?" Elena smiled. "Yeah," she said, rolling up her sleeves. "A little." And as she stepped forward, helping a kid who reminded her of every overlooked customer, she realized something. She hadn't just fixed a company, she'd started a legacy. One built on justice, on compassion, and on never letting silence stand where truth was needed. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes in justice. Leave a comment with your thoughts. And never forget, real change starts when someone decides to say enough